Hi everybody, Chef Greg here. Today we're going to be talking about rice, okay, which sounds kind of boring, but it's actually quite interesting. Okay, rice, as you know, has been cultivated for thousands of years in Asia and more recently here in America. It's one of the more popular grains that we have in the world. More people eat rice than eat anything else. Okay, rice is a big part of our diet, and there's a lot more than one kind of rice. So I want to talk about that a little bit. Okay, people use different kinds of rice for making different dishes. Today we're going to be making a sushi roll. This is Hsar. He's one of our cooks. He's been with us for 7 or 8 years. And I thought it was a good idea if you got to know some of the cooks a little bit better instead of looking at my face every week. Plus, Hsar is better at making sushi rolls than I am. So that's why we brought him, okay? Let's talk a little bit about our ingredients. We have sushi rice, which we'll be using today. The reason we use sushi rice is sushi is a thicker, more starchy grain of rice. This is purple rice, which is just kind of fun. It tastes kind of bland, but it has a really pretty flavor. Basmati rice, which is popular in India, which is a very aromatic type of rice. Brown rice, which is really just unpolished rice. The reason that it's brown is because of the covering, the grain is still on there. It hasn't been polished off. And of course, just rice. This is just long grain rice, which is most of what we eat. This is really what happens when you take brown rice and you polish it. Okay? So what we're going to be doing today is making this dish. We're going to make our very own pickled ginger. Can you bring that pot over here, please? Yeah. Okay. And we'll make some wasabi, and then Hsar will make our dish. Okay. Now this is ginger. Okay. Ginger is a type of root. It's actually technically a rhizome. To explain what the difference is, you'd have to be smarter than I am. But basically, it's used in a lot of cooking. It has a very aromatic smell, okay, sort of lemony on its own. Ginger is used I really like using ginger as sort of a background ingredient. It doesn't necessarily have to be the star. You can add ginger to dishes and it'll just fit in on its own, okay? So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna take some of this ginger root. Now it has a very thin skin on it. You can either leave the skin on or you can take it off. Okay, the only trouble with leaving it on is it has all these little nooks and crannies which is hard to get your knife into. I'm going to do something crazy. I'm going to use a spoon. And watch what we do here. The skin comes right off. Okay, and we can get a spoon into these little nooks and crannies very easily. Okay. Just going to take that off real here. I discovered this trick when I got my knives sharpened one time as a line cook, and I realized that the sharper my knives were, the harder it was to do this. Because really, you're not cutting so much as scraping. When I had a nice dull knife, I thought this is pretty easy. When I sharpened my knife, I lost half the ginger root, okay? But again, the root is perfectly edible. There's nothing wrong with it. Some people don't like to see it. Okay? So we're going to take some rice vinegar right here. Put it in our pot. And the reason I use rice vinegar is it's a little bit sweet. It has some sugar in it, and it's also kind of traditional. We're gonna add a little bit of salt to that. Okay. And we're gonna slice it very thin. Now this is what's called a French mandolin, okay? And the mandolin is used to cut very thin slices of food, okay? So we adjust the blade right here and we slowly, carefully slice our ginger. And as you can see, it comes out nice and thin like that. It's a lot easier to use this than to use a knife. Downside to the French mandolin is, the cooks like to call it the Widowmaker. It is very easy to scrape your fingers down this thing and lose the tips of them. But it's really kind of useful, okay? So we've got our thin slices of ginger right here, okay? Our vinegar is coming to a boil. We're gonna add that in there. And we're gonna let it simmer. Now what's gonna happen, the longer you let ginger sit in the vinegar, it's gonna begin to turn slightly pink. When you go to a sushi restaurant and you have pickled ginger, it's always bright pink. Mainly it comes from the actual ginger itself. It turns pink, especially the younger the ginger is. It tends to have pink at the tips. A lot of the store-bought ginger just has food coloring in it. That's why it's nice to kind of make your own. You know what's in here, you know how good it is. We're gonna let that come to a boil. And while we're doing that, we're going to make some wasabi. Okay. Let that simmer. Now, this is what's called wasabi powder. Wasabi traditionally is a Japanese species of horseradish, okay? That is really only found in Japan. It is traditionally used with sushi and with some of these types of dishes. It's very fiery, very pungent, okay? It's also very difficult to get in America, okay? Wasabi actually doesn't travel very well. It doesn't freeze very well. It doesn't dry very well. And for a long time, it wasn't even allowed outside of Japan. They were very close-guarded in their wasabi production. You can get it in America right now, but it's very cheap and usually very expensive. What we use, and they call it wasabi, is either powdered horseradish or powdered mustard, okay? So if you're having wasabi in a sushi restaurant or here at V, that's probably what you're actually eating. But it's very simple. We take it and we put it in our bowl. We add a little bit of warm water. And just mix it together into a paste. Now when we serve this here at V, this is what it looks like. When we serve this here, I usually don't put wasabi on the plate unless you ask me for it. And I'll tell you why. Because you have this beautiful little piece of green paste here. If you were to pop that into your mouth and you didn't know what it was, it would be very, very surprising. And we've actually had that happen here at V before. So, I don't like to do it unless somebody specifically asked me for it. We had one lady eat it and she thought it was avocado. And she was unpleasantly surprised because it's very, very pungent. And because we're fancy right here, we're just gonna make a nice little quenelle out of it. Okay, this is called a quenelle, that type of shape, and this is how you make it. 2 spoons. Okay, so this is what we have right here. And I'm gonna set that to the side. And our ginger is getting nice and soft now. Okay. Some chefs will actually add radishes to it to add flavor, and it also adds color. We're just gonna go sort of au naturel here, okay? And meanwhile, Hsar here is going to make our sushi roll. You ready, Hsar?
Yeah.
Okay. The trouble with Hsar being so good at making sushi is it means he has to make it all the time. So I'm just gonna talk while he works, okay? He's younger and better looking, so just focus on him. So what we have here, this is called nori, okay? Nori is just seaweed. There's a type of seaweed that they use in Japan, and what they do is they harvest it, they press it into sheets, and they dry it, okay? This is our container to hold the sushi, okay? It doesn't have a lot of flavor on its own, so don't worry so much about the nori. Go ahead. And then he's got his sushi rice here, which is sticky. See how it's kind of clumping together like that? And what he's done is he actually added a little bit of rice vinegar to it, which also kind of, let's face it, rice is a little bit bland. So it adds a little bit of zing to it, and it also makes it easier to work because it gets very, very starchy and very, very sticky, okay? Just spreading it out into an even layer. Okay. This is one of our garden cucumbers. This is what it looks like before, and this is after. We just thought it would be fun to do this. Typically we use English cucumbers, and the reason we use them is they don't have any seeds. But we had a couple of cucumbers thanks to one of our residents who harvested them for us, so thank you. You know who you are. And Hsar is going to use this. Avocado. Okay. And our salmon. This is just a smoked salmon. So as you know, it's cured salmon that has been then finished with smoke, so it has a little bit of a salty, a little bit of a smoky flavor. Okay. Sesame seeds and black sesame seeds. Black sesame seeds and white sesame seeds taste exactly the same. They just look a little bit different. Okay. This is the tricky part. He has to compress it. He's rolling it on bamboo here as he rolls it. Okay, see how it comes together like that? Yep, go ahead. All right, show them the cut part. See, like that? Okay, so this is our sushi roll. You can see all the layers here, okay? We have our avocado, we have our cucumber, we have our smoked salmon, okay? He's gonna slice it into thin little strips. Okay, excellent. Beautiful. Soy sauce, okay. Nice. We've got our pickled ginger here. And we have our little quenelle of wasabi. And here we have smoked salmon sushi with soy sauce, house pickled ginger, and wasabi. And what should we serve with this? Good question. This is my favorite form of rice. This is called sake. Sake is what we refer to as rice wine, okay? It's technically not a wine. Now, wine is made from fruit. Most commonly, we have grapes is what makes wine, and beer is made from grain. Well, this is made from rice. Rice is a grain, and so technically this is a beer, but it's done very, very differently. What they do in Japan is they take the rice, it's a very special type of rice, they cook it, and then they add something called koji right there to the pot. Koji does what yeast does in other sorts of dishes. Koji is a bacteria that then eats the sugar that has been converted from the starch, and it creates alcohol and it creates flavor. And then they let it ferment for a day or two, and they strain the entire thing out. There's lots of different versions of sake. This is one of my favorite. This is called a junmai sake. Okay, it can be served hot or cold. A lot of times you'll go to a restaurant and they'll serve it hot, which is just fine. But in this case, we're going to have it cold because, in my opinion, when it's cold, we get a lot more flavor. Okay, let's put it right here, just on the side. There we go. And this is our accompaniment, our sake, chilled sake with our dish.